what about the current status? We see things in the papers, we hear rumors, there's different websites. Getting to ground zero, understanding what the reality is important for us to make good business decisions as we move forward and figure out our timing. Obviously, the COVID pandemic has changed a lot of things, but the fact is we're moving forward and we need to learn some of the facts. And that's what we've got the experts with you today to take a look at some of the facts. So I'd like to turn it over to Marcia McAllister, who I needs no introduction. Georgia gave her the overview, but people show up just to hear Marcia and kind of put in text, because she has an understanding of what the growth has been. She's seen the many iterations of what's happened. And we know, Marcia, thank you so much for joining us, and you're one of our friends. Thank you.
Well, we can chat a bit about some things about the airport before we get started talking about the rail project a bit. I can tell you that the airline industry has been terribly hit by the virus. Traffic at both airports are below 20%, so you can imagine what that's doing to some of our planning for the future from the airport's viewpoint. But now we're here, good. What you're looking at is a United airplane flying over the construction area of the windscreen at the Dulles station. If you were standing on this side looking at, you would be looking across the parking bays over toward the station. I can guarantee you that this picture was made prior to the virus, because those flights aren't flying very frequently anymore. So let's get going with us. I know you've heard a lot about different things going on with the Airports Authority in the last couple of months, especially about construction. Well, we've been saying this for a long time, but construction is still at 98% complete. But that doesn't mean that the project is ready to open. There's a lot left to do. What we're doing now is we're focusing on getting ready to turn the project over to WMATA as soon as possible, making sure that the project is built to contract compliance, safety, quality, and durability. And the opening date will still be set by WMATA, even though there's lots of talk about different opening dates and expectations. And as you probably have already figured out, it's probably going to be maybe this time next year before we start to really actually open, but we don't have a date yet. Some of the reasons for it being that far, that long in the future, number one, is that WMATA will set the date. They have plenty of testing they need to do, and I want to go over some of the work that still has to be done. As most of you know, the rail project is being built by two different contractors, well, really 3 or 4 different contractors, but the 2 major contractors are Hensel Phelps, which is building the rail and maintenance yard out beyond Dulles Airport, on its own Dulles Airport property, and Capital Rail Constructors, which is building the rail system itself, the tracks, the switches, the traction powers, and substations, the train control, the control room systems, etc. Last month, well, it was March now, time does fly, resolution, and we are trying to find resolution to all of the different issues identified by WMATA's Office of Inspector General in both CRC and Hensel Phelps areas. WMATA acceptance of those outstanding issues and deficiencies, including precast panels, are challenges for us right now. WMATA, it's important to note at this point that WMATA has not yet made a statement on the concrete panels issue, which I think we've been talking about for about 3 years now, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to go through some of these other challenges with you. In the rail yard, for example, for about 1.5 to 2 years, we've been working with HP to try to get them to resolve what's called deficiency in the fouled ballast. The ballast, as you can see in the pictures, is the rock that is in the rail yard. It is a vital component of the drainage systems and the stability of the tracks. This issue must be resolved. There are little tiny particles that get in and they block things up and they stop the drainage. WMATA OIG mentioned this. This has got to be resolved. We have directed the contractor to do it over and over and over again, and it still has not been done. The next issue involves what's in the yard is called insulated joint problems, but that's just a little bit of a misnomer for most of us to understand with it. If you can envision that the misaligned hole, their joints, and the contractor built holes to hold the tracks down too big or too little and in the wrong places. All those have to be replaced, and all of that must be retested. The OIG said so, and the Airports Authority says so. That process has not started yet, even though the contractor has been told to do it, but we're working on it. And then another problem at the rail yard is their giant hoist inside the maintenance facilities. In fact, the train washing buildings, for example, in which lift up those heavy, heavy rail cars where they can be cleaned, polished, serviced. Well, the hoists are not properly synchronized. Contractor knows this. The contractor is trying to bring in different subcontractors to help them come up with a synchronization plan. Remediation will be ongoing as soon as we have a solution. These things, I know all of are disappointing to the public to hear about these kinds of things, but I'm not gonna not talk about them. The OIG did. We go over to package A and talk about some of the challenges we face there. Most of you know that there have been cross-level deficiencies at the main cross-level tracks, which are pictured in the photo there, and you can see where the tracks cross over. And it turned out that there were 28 turnouts like this at 7 different locations, and there are problems with getting the ability of the tracks to be level. CRC took an immediate, once this was identified about 2 years ago now, CRC created some special, they called it special hardware, different size pieces, and went along and placed these things underneath to try to correct the problem. It didn't work, and we rejected it and told them to remove it. They had installed it at their own risk. They did not wait for guidance from us or WMATA. But WMATA and the Airports Authority are rejecting those. We have started doing track retamping, which see how much that will help and see if that will help relieve the problem. The results of retamping at one location has been conditionally accepted by WMATA. It seems to be working, but the work continues at 6 of the other locations. We may have to remove at least 6 or 7 rail ties along the way before this gets accepted. WMATA will take a look at each location separately. And WMATA has been on site, we have been on site, CRC has been on site, and we're all working, hoping we'll find a solution that the retamping may work, but we just don't know yet for all the sites. Next one, the panels, which I think y'all have heard separate presentations on the concrete panels, known as the universal concrete panels. They are at all 5 of the 6 stations, everything except Dulles Station. And they're problems that relate to water content and reaction of the stone that was used in making. But the problems are that we fear may happen, but with these problems is that water will go into the panels and challenge their 100-year durability. We have worked with CRC and developed some protective coatings. Primarily, I think they're on the next slide, Dusty. Yeah, it's a waterproof sealant made of silane and a corrosion inhibitor. It's been applied and then reapplied. The first ones were sprayed on, and discovered that when you spray something, envision putting Windex on your window. What does it do? It rolls down. Some of that was happening. They were reapplied and basically painted on. And that seems to have resolved the problem. We believe that with the addition of another special covering going down near on the platform edges where more de-icing components would get involved, this resolves the problem. And we have joined the contractor into telling WMATA that we think this is going to work. The WMATA OIG has a different opinion. They're not sure, they're not confident, they question the 100-year durability and the cost of long-term maintenance and very frequent inspections that could be yearly even is their fear, and inspection. But we are hoping that eventually we'll get this all worked out. WMATA has searched the country wide and finally in March located a contractor in New York City who was willing and able to do the kind of testing that they want to see done on all 1,700 panels. But because of the quarantine restrictions involving New York, 14-day quarantines on each end of the job, if they took it and came down here now, they haven't come yet, and they're not exactly sure when they're going to come. We expect them to come in June, but the date of when their work would be completed, we don't have any idea yet. And keep your fingers crossed. Then they will issue a report after they do that and send it to WMATA, and they will share it with us, and we will start talking with them about what else we can do to convince them, or what else they want us to do additionally physically on site to try to remedy this. You've probably heard a lot, some of you who are really close to the project have probably heard about, there have been some difficulties with what we called N06, but that's really the tie-in, the critical tie-in at the Wheelie Station to connect up phase 2 with phase 1. There were several problems that were caused by the fact that the contractor used a different train control system and a different company to put a different connection system. And turns out that it doesn't exactly merge correctly with what was installed in phase 1 where they merge. So we needed, and we knew we needed at least probably 13 weekend shutdowns to get in there and do the work, all the connections that need to be done to allow the dynamic testing and SCADA testing that still needs to be done. Well, we've been talking with WMATA about could we get these 13 and whatever. Well, that changed a bit in our favor. In April, when WMATA made the decision to shut down the Silver Line and the Orange Line from May 24th to Labor Day, because they had work that they had planned to do at Boston and at other stations on involving the Orange and Silver Lines. And this created an opportunity for us to make the case to WMATA that it would be, could we get a single 2-month outage or a single 6 weeks outage where we could do that work at the Wheelie Station. Well, they were going to be shutting it down anyway. So, but the problem was still lingering that CRC had not put forth the adequate documentation of the work that they had done, or the hazard analysis for the work, months and months of work, months and months of work that never was recorded and never reported properly to WMATA or to us. And now they were told that they had to get all that done and turn it in by hopefully today, where WMATA would have time to get us set up, to get everything set up that would take place to create this shutdown, including bridge buses and a whole lot of other things. But I want to be specific about the details that CRC must file multiple reports, and especially their hazard analysis. They have been submitting some of the hazard analysis along with subcontractors, trying to make their case, and so far it has not worked. But the work taking place in the last 10 days, I think, it should be in the final stages today and tomorrow. And we are at this point hopeful of starting this work next week, this long awaited work next week. We're just waiting for the final go ahead. We were told last week that it looked like that might happen. And CRC is working on the multi-day outage schedule, scheduling some double shifts when necessary, crews working overtime, etc., in order to make sure that we complete the work between, say, the 27th of May and the end of July. The reason for it needing to be done by the end of July is that WMATA is hopeful that if they get the repairs work that they need to be done on the rest of the orange line early, that they might be able to open the system up again before Labor Day. Keep your fingers crossed on this one for us. The more positive news, in addition to that opportunity, I talked about the windscreen at Dulles when you saw the pictures earlier, and I'm going to show you a very special picture of it in just a minute. But the construction work there is by W.M. Schlosser. They're a Northern Virginia company. This was originally to be built by CRC, but they didn't want to do it, so we took it out of the contract and awarded it to somebody else. It involved installing 10 huge steel columns on both sides of the Dulles station, right across from in the parking garage, across from the main terminal. There are 9 to 10 welders every day placing the final supports. I don't remember what they're actually called, on top of those columns to support it. This is what it looked. You can go on to the next slide. These are the 10 columns on each side, on the station side, on the terminal side, and there's another 10 on the other side. This is going to be a massive screen wall, but it allows the architecture of the station to mirror the architecture in the at the terminal, as you can see that in John, the background of your photo, John, in your background shot. You can see that, and it literally is a windscreen, but it will also be an architectural feature that I think will continue to let us blend the station and the rail operations in with the aviation operations without interrupting Dulles' unique style. We are also bragging about our stormwater management folks. You know, we changed how we were going to handle stormwater management right at the start of construction of phase 2. It created a years-long delay, cost us money in order to conform to what was then the latest and we thought the best options for the future of stormwater management along the Dulles corridor. I have to brag on them. They are ahead of schedule. Maybe the only contractor on the project that really is ahead of schedule. There are 15 of these ponds which will filter the water and clean it up when it's collected before releasing it into the difficult run and other watersheds. For completed, 14 are under construction, but those were numbers from about a month and a half ago. Today, most of them are completely done, including a large one at Route 28 and near the entrance to Dulles Airport. These don't look like just big mud holes. They are well landscaped, they're well planted, and the planting is taking place now. So we're very proud of these folks. They've done a great job. The next, I think Dusty?
I'm working.
Okay. Okay, now we're going
Computer's not the greatest. I apologize.
That's okay. We're going to talk a little bit about the virus, and I don't think I've got some new information since we put this slide together, so I'm going to talk not directly from it. So far in the Airports Authority structure and with Dulles Airport, with the rail project, we have only had 5 workers who have tested positively for the virus. Several of them have recovered and are back at work. But that's 2% of our workforce, but that's not many at all. We are very blessed and very grateful for this. But there have been some folks involved from the different contractors, but not enough to slow construction. What CRC is missing for any days out, they're managing to make up in some extra time worked. We've had one or two of our subcontractors have people in and out. That was one of the reasons for some of the slowdown with the construction of the columns at the station, at the Dulles station. But we have put into and started very early in this, putting in major controls to try to guard the safety of all of our employees, all our workers, everybody we work with. I don't think I've been in the office but one time in 2.5 months or 3 months. That was to take in a cell phone that was not working properly and could not be fixed distantly. There are critical people there to make sure all our IT functions are working, etc. Some of the construction managers are in and out of the office. Everybody is wearing masks. Some of the folks have the very, very fancy masks like are worn by some hospital folks. Significant numbers of our employees are making their own mask and making masks to give to all the TSA folks at the airport, etc. Everybody's got to wear a mask and practice social distancing. Pretty much we're sticking with 7 to 8 feet rather than the minimum 6, but it's hard sometimes to communicate in this project without thinking, you got to see somebody face to face, but all of us have learned that that's always not necessary at all. The Airports Authority has guidelines. The rail project has task-specific guidelines for gloves, for goggles, for all kinds of gear and gown-like contraptions. Some of our people look like some people from Star Wars when you go out and see them on site working. Ones are working on site. Contractors abiding by the same things. Contractor, especially CRC, has been really, really attentive to this issue and really, really paid a lot of attention to making sure things are working safely. Morning safety briefings, which used to be sort of cheerleading sessions for every morning, they are now full of reviewing not only what they have to do for the day, but going over the safety precautions. The subcontractors have all of their own policies, and we have collected all of those policies because we get a lot of questions about what they're doing. But all of our subcontractors and contractor guidelines for working are posted on a new website that went live last night that you can find links to on the Rail Project website. Anybody not feeling well is not supposed to come to work. If the employee must report an illness, and there are very detailed ways for setting things. We're trying to monitor all the ever-changing, whatever guidelines might come from the CDC, from the Commonwealth of Virginia, from WMATA, and from this, especially from Governor Northam, and the different locations, the different localities. Fairfax and Loudoun have both done, I think, a very good job of keeping us and keeping the rest of the residents very well informed on what's going on. We got some quick pictures. I know I've probably taken more of my time. Let's just run through these as quick as we can, because I know that you'd like to go walk into these stations, but unfortunately we can't take you now. So we're going to try to show you a little bit of what's going on, and then I'll be happy to hang around for questions. This is the South Pavilion of Reston Town Center. This is the escalator at Reston Town Center with your looking, I think you're looking east in this. Looks like every other escalator in the system. But this is the mezzanine in the Reston station.
Oops. Don't,
It's okay. We got 2 of the escalator. The South Pedestrian Bridge coming up is very much like the wheelie station if you're inside. Most of these are and here again is the Herndon South Station Pavilion. It's really looking good with its bike racks and everything. It looks like you could use it. This is the Herndon South Pedestrian Bridge to the new garage. The elevator banks and the mezzanine inside Herndon. And you can see all the signs are even up. You think these places are ready to be used, and they pretty much are. Fair gates at Herndon. I'm excited about the way they look. This is the county garage building at the Innovation Center South, and much interest really became focused, of course, on this station and whatever is going to take place with the new ownership of the CIT this week. That was a huge economic boost to take place at this time, especially when we're struggling to see where we're going with our economy here. My favorite picture. This is the test train on the aerial guideway at the airport. I think what we're seeing though is employee parking. There beyond it are satellite parking. I'm not sure, but I like that train in the gray and sky. The Loudoun Gateway Station, which doesn't get a lot of attention, I don't think, from most of us who are talking about it, because it doesn't have the immediate economic development potential right around it that the others do, but it's as handsome as the others. And we like this picture. I like the way the pedestrian bridge swings out and around, even though it does look like it's a long way to walk. That's okay. Parking availability at the Loudoun Gateway Station is already being in use, Dusty?
this garage is not currently in use.
Okay.
The one across on the other side, on the north side, is.
Oh, okay. And it's got the same kind of signage in it, which everybody finds very helpful in these parking garages at the airport and at Tyson's Corner Center that look just like that. So, again, the Loudoun Gateway Bridge to the garage. It looks so quiet and peaceful. This is the Ashburn South Pavilion and the new county garage that is there. I'm not familiar enough with how the garages are open at the Ashburn Pavilion right now to speak to it, but Dusty, you might know.
Yeah, actually, I misspoke on the last slide. On Loudoun Gateway, there's only one garage and it's not open yet.
Oh, okay.
But
Thank you.
at Ashburn, the garage to the south, which is this one, is not open. And the garage on the north side is in use.
Oh, good, good, good. Because I know we get phone calls. People are anxious in Ashburn for this station to open. This is a test train in the rail yard, and behind it is the maintenance facility, which houses some of that equipment that they're still trying to synchronize and make sure it's working. But you can see the track beds are all working there in spite of the ballast and things that need to be done. And that's it. I'm happy to hang around for questions, or if you've got questions right now, I'd be happy to take them, or whatever you want to do as moderator.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for having me. We're all working together to get this done as quick as we can.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's great teamwork, and having been around big federal operations, it takes a while. There's always complications that come up. You just have to deal with it. It's very complex when you look and break it down. If anybody has questions, I sent out a note in the chat. Just do the Q&A. You can hit the tab for Q&A or send Dusty or I a note, and we'll be able to get those in. If you're not on the list to get Greg Potts' email list, then you're missing out. Then you're really not interested in Metro. Greg has got the inside track. He shares it. Can't thank him enough for all he does. He's the public face for what's been happening with Metro. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Greg. Thanks for joining us.
Sure, happy to help. Appreciate it. And so again, I'm Greg Potts with Metro Government Relations. I think Dusty has the slides.
Yeah, I'm working on pulling it up now. I didn't have the chance to grab
No problem.
it real quick. So if just give me just one moment here.
Yeah, no problem. So I think I'll just go ahead and start talking, if that's
Yeah.
okay with everybody. So once there is a slide, you'll see a slide of kind of background intro on the platform project. There's a picture that you'll see in a second of the platforms. We have 20 very old platforms in the system that are outdoor and they need a full repair. We started this project last summer and we did the work on, it was south of the National Airport. And so we did that work last summer and it was successful. It was not only a full rebuild of the platforms, but it was also some work on the station itself. There was a lot of work that was done on the tiles, on the LED lighting. There was new shelters for our passengers, digital displays, all that. So it's not just about platforms, it's also about a rebuild of the station itself and making it a little more modern for the customers. And so while we get the slides up, I'll keep just rolling through. All right. Yeah, sure. If you want at a certain point, I can try to share my own screen. Just let me know, Dusty.
Yeah, I'm almost there.
Okay. So phase one accomplishments. There's a graphic that you'll see in a second that's got sort of some fun facts about, you know, what we accomplished. Just for example, we completed 7,200 feet of platform edge, and that's equivalent to 20 football fields. So that's kind of a fun stat. Okay, here we go.
All right, which page?
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is good. So I already spoke to this, but I'll just highlight. Here's the picture. So this is, I think it's one of our Alexandria stations from last summer. You can see the before. It's obviously in terrible shape. You can see the pieces of concrete that are actually falling down on the track bed itself. So, you know, in a terrible shape. I don't think I have to talk about the need for the repairs there, safety. And then the after picture, you can see the full rebuild. It's obviously a big improvement. So just roll the next one, please. So I mentioned this, I won't go through this a lot. This is just some fun facts here on what was accomplished last year. And I mentioned the one about the football field. So, you know, a lot of work was done. Just wanted to give an idea of the scope of the work. So they got a very lot done in a short period of time. Next slide. All right, just a really quick here, just regional coordination efforts. You know, we've been working with the entire region for some time. And these are just a few of the logos of the groups that we work with. We have monthly calls with these groups and we try to get on the same page, coordinate with everybody. And that obviously helps us out, the whole region. Next slide. All right, so here's the deal. So this summer, starting on Saturday, which is hard to believe, on Saturday, May the 23rd, there is going to be a shutdown of the metro system to the west of the Ballston station. So that means 4 of the Orange Line stations that are west of Ballston, that's Vienna, Dunloring, West Falls, and East Falls, and all 5 of the new Silver Line stations to the west of the Ballston station. So 2 things are going on. The first thing is that Metro is working on these platforms that I mentioned. It's the 4 Orange Line platforms, and that was always envisioned. We announced that back in, I believe it was December. And of course, as Marcia mentioned, the plan did change a little bit with the expanded shutdown zone. So previously we did not expect to shut down the Silver Line. And unfortunately, because of a lot of factors, we need to do that because of safety and other reasons. And I'll get into that. So the first thing that's happening is, of course, the platform work. Second thing that's happening is what Marcia was mentioning. This is the tie-in work from phase 1 to phase 2. And that was what she was talking about with the INWA anticipated doing 13 weekend shutdowns. And so this gives an opportunity for them to get in and get out. And I was pleased to hear her mention that they're hoping to get out by the end of July. So that's great news. And we appreciate that if we can get that done. Next slide. Okay, so this is the rail service information. I mentioned this, so you can see the map here. It's everything to the west of Ballston. The Orange Line trains will begin at the Ballston station and they'll run all the way to New Carrollton. And there's not going to be any Silverline service, of course. Next slide. So here's the information on the shuttles. We're going to provide all summer free shuttles to our customers. They're going to be operating at the same times as the rail system, and the rail system is now open a little bit curtailed hours because of COVID-19, but you can see on the right side of the screen the current hours. And we're running a number of shuttles that are free. There's an Orange Line local that stops at, you can see Dunloring, West Falls, and then goes to Ballston. There's an express shuttle that runs from the Vienna station to the Ballston station with no stops. And then there's a Silver Line local, which stops at Spring Hill, Tysons, and Ballston. And you might wonder, why is it not stopping at Greensboro and McLean? The answer is 19 stations closed down because of COVID-19, and those were 2 of them, including the East Falls Church station. So as of now, we aren't going to be stopping at those stations that are closed due to COVID-19. If they do reopen, then we'll reinstate that shuttle service for the summer. This is just a mention of this really quick. This is just some of the other routes that are available in the corridor. These are not free routes, but these are routes with our partners, Metro Bus. The one to mention for this group in particular is the 5A, that's the Dulles Airport route. And then you can see the other routes that are Fairfax County, OmniRide, and others. It's just alternative service during the shutdown. So this is sort of to help answer the question of why are we doing this shutdown, the expanded shutdown. So the first is about safety, obviously. So it's about to limit the exposure of the frontline staff and the contractors. So that's really what it's all about. Last summer with Kiewit, that's the contractor, they were able to have crews, operate with about 100 people at a time. And so, this time around, it's a little bit more difficult. They have to do social distancing. So there are safety measures that are put into place here that we have to follow and are very important. And not only for the contractors, but for the Metro staff with the Operations Control Center, they of course have to, have staffing there. And this is, makes it easier on them, and it protects them as well. So it's really about safety first and foremost. It's also about mitigating delays to the capital program here. This is a more efficient way to get it done. It is inconvenient, of course, but I'm hoping to get the work done as quickly as possible. And then the last one is to minimize inconvenience to the public. So for example, with the Silverline Phase 2 tie-in work, that was going to be done over the weekend, so that's pretty inconvenient. So to get this work all done at the same time is helpful. Next slide. Yeah, so this is the comps timeline. This did change significantly because we were not able to do, of course, a lot of the in-person outreach. We had a lot of open houses that were planned. We had pop-ups that were planned. So everything that we had planned to do, we sort of had to pivot on that one, of course, unfortunately. You can see the schedule here. Marcia mentioned the April 23rd was the date that we announced the expanded shutdown zone. We have a really great communications team. They've been doing a lot of good work with press releases, blog posts, social media, all those things. And we are at the very, very end of the lead up to that because, of course, Saturday is the date of the shutdown. They put out reminders. They put out a lot of info in the system. And then, of course, working with our partners, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, Arlington County, others to get the word out. In fact, we had a call this morning with all the regional PIOs, so that was very helpful for them to share the message with us. And then during the shutdown itself, we'll have physical people that are out there answering questions. They'll have PPE. They'll be able to get you to the right place, as well as our bus staff. And then something to mention quickly, of course, COVID-19 will have an impact on how we handle the buses. We're expecting, to not load the buses up to more than half, I think is sort of a strategy right now. And we're of course going to be following that as we work with the local officials, as the region decides to start reopening. So, that's kind of a little bit of a moving target, but of course safety is important to our customers. We're going to make sure that they're as safe as possible. And I think you might have heard it mentioned that Metro is now requiring, as of today, face coverings in the system. And I think that was it. That was the last slide. Yeah. So it's just a thank you to everybody. And if you go to the website, it's wamata.com/platforms. It's got all the info on there. There's an FAQ on there now. That's really helpful. There's a one-page fact sheet. There's maps. There's info on the project. We're going to do a very routine blog post that's going to have information with pictures. So they're going to be blasting that out during the summer. So thank you and appreciate the time, and happy to answer questions later.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Greg. That was really helpful and a great overview. I know a few folks already have some questions that'll be queued up. You should be able to read those, and we'll kind of walk through them. Hey, I'd like to introduce Scott Gross now. Georgia talked about. He's from Loudoun County. This is a big team effort, not only between the two counties of Fairfax and Loudoun, but the whole region. But look forward to hearing Scott's comments. Scott, over to you.
So what I really did here, I was a little concerned about doing this because this map is very busy and it's very hard to see on a big screen, much less on a little screen. So I am bringing it up just so I can kind of highlight the different areas of the county where we're going to be adding service or where we're planning to add service as we move forward. One of several things that are coming up right now is really with the COVID-19 and how this is going to affect us moving forward. We like the state of Virginia, have no idea how this is going to affect our revenue picture. We'll have a better handle on that as a county after probably the middle of June sometime when the first revenue bills come in. But to give you an idea, I mean, obviously this is a lot of this is our current service now. We have a lot of these are local fixed routes that don't necessarily go to the rail stations. I don't know how well my mouse is tracking online, but right now I'm circling the Ashburn station kind of in the lower middle of the screen, and then the Loudoun Gateway station right there. We currently right now have 9 routes that are what we call Metro Connection services. They travel from out west, which is way up in the top or left-hand corner of your screen, from the north, which is towards the right of your screen, and then down towards the bottom of your screen is the south end of the county. We have 3 buses on one route that actually go to West Falls Church Metro Rail Station. With the rail station being closed now, we've moved those buses to Ballston, and they'll be there for the summer. We have another 8 routes that actually serve Wheelie, Reston East Metro Rail Station currently. All of those routes will move to either the Ashburn or Gateway station once we go into post-rail service, so once revenue service starts in the county. Most of these routes that are kind of in the right corner, if you can see my mouse moving around, most of those routes will end up going to the Gateway station. If down south in the southern part of the county, those routes will also be going to the Gateway station or the south side of Ashburn. We're going to try to split those up so that we have an even amount of buses in the system, not to overload either one of the stations. All of the buses from the west, from either Leesburg or Percival, Hamilton, all of those buses will end up going to the Ashburn station. Once we transition over to the post-rail service, we will go from 9 routes with 20 buses on them to 12 routes with almost 30 buses on them. There are several routes that are actually going to go away because they're too close to the stations already. So any of the routes that are too close to the Ashburn Metro Rail Station or the Loudoun Gateway Station will close once the rail station opens up. So it's not that we're adding 3 routes and several buses. We're actually, it's kind of a net gain of about, probably about 10 additional routes going onto the service once we transition into the rail. Now we do have some hiccups along the way. We had planned to go out for public comment for most of these routes in May or June, obviously with the COVID-19 responses. That's not happening. So we are going to probably end up going out closer to September to allow the public to, provide their input on this and go over those routes and kind of see what happens. We also have to deal with the summer shutdown. We think we have a plan for that, and really that, to Greg's point that he was talking earlier, as things are shut down now, that's not really a big deal. But if things start to open up in late June or July, and people have to start going back to work, I think we're going to feel the pressure of that Silver Line being shut down, unfortunately. I don't know what that looks like. I'm on weekly transit calls with just about everybody in the area, all the other transit groups in the area, along with the Office of Personnel Management for the government. Nobody seems to have a real idea of when we're going to open up, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that everything can get done on WMATA's end. They've been doing a spectacular job so far of really managing communications and managing the project itself. I applaud them for wanting to get this done soon, and I just hope that everything times out for them so that it inconveniences everybody's least as possible. So that's in a nutshell, and I realize that was a very quick presentation on my end. I do want to throw the caveat in that all of the routes that we have planned were based on pre-COVID revenue rates. So we will not know, the transit division will not know really what we can actually operate moving forward until a better revenue picture for FY21 is put into place. But the plan is to fully support the rail system as best we can. We have a significant investment in that. Everybody's very excited about it. And we hope to open up some economic areas that we're not serving right now, particularly down in the 606 and Loudoun County and the Loudoun County Parkway areas. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions when the time comes.
We'll get to questions right after Dennis. And Dennis is going to talk a little bit about the town of Herndon, which folks, it's different than just the Herndon zip code, right? It also has 2 metro stations, affects it. It's just something that's important. We got to remind ourselves it is a little different, and it does require some attention. So real excited to have Dennis here to share the insight and from the town. So Dennis, over to you.
Thank you. So I'm just going to talk about today a little bit about what Fairfax County has done related to the planning for the bus service for Herndon metro area, part of phase 2 of the Silver Line. Planning began back in the fall of 2018 with public outreach meetings. And then in the winter of 2018 into 2019, after doing some technical analysis and receiving public input, they developed 3 alternative bus route plans that were presented last fall to the public. And they encouraged feedback via the community meetings and an online survey. Based on the residents and the stakeholder feedback and further analysis, they developed a preferred route plan, which is out now. Was released earlier this year. The preferred plan has over 30 routes that will be serving the Herndon Metro Station, Innovation Station, and the Reston Town Center Station once they all open, hopefully in 2021. They were supposed to hold community meetings in late March and early April, but obviously due to COVID, that was canceled or they were postponed. They are going to be scheduled at a later date. However, they do have the routes online, and they have a survey where they'd like to get your feedback if you could. It's open until further notice, and after receiving public input and from the public meetings, the connector will then make a recommendation to the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. That was expected to happen this spring, but all of this will probably be delayed until next summer, or not, either summer to fall.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dusty, who's been kind of juggling a whole bunch of balls in the background. And hasn't even sweated. You can zoom in. No sweat on Dusty.
Jeff, would you like to ask this question live? I think you're able to now. Well, I think what he wants to know is, it sounds like the package B rail yard issues are stalemate. Is this an accurate impression?
Yeah, that's my question, Dusty, and it's for Marcia, obviously.
Yeah.
Jeff, thank you. In some cases, I feel the same way you do, that they're kind of at a stalemate. We are working every day trying to put pressure on Hensel Phelps, the contractor. There are all sorts of conversations about how we can put more pressure on them to do what they know they need to do. They have been directed by the Airports Authority through, and we had hoped that the words of the WMATA OIG would impress them too, but those negotiations are going on every day. I would hate to use the word stalemate, but we're kind of stuck, and hopefully things will brighten up a bit. The virus has given us some time to try to convince them that it's in the best interest of everyone to proceed and go ahead and get these things done. They keep submitting newly revised schedules to us, and none of them change anything at this point. But I'll be happy to get you more information and try to keep you updated on it. It is a disappointment, I think, to everyone.
Hey, Marcia, to a degree, I think this was answered, but maybe they want a little more specificity. Keith Merlin is asking, with the closing of the Silver Line, how much will that help construction?
It's not going to speed it up and get us to open any sooner, because the work that we're doing will be done at the same time the WMATA is doing work that they need to be doing. But by designated that zone around the station as a work site for CRC, that speeds up their ability to get their work done. And overall, if you look at everything where there are major problems, the tracks, etc., they're all in different places, and all this work can be attacked simultaneously if the contractors can get their act together and get going. I think WMATA Chairman Paul Wiedefeld is as anxious as we are to get everything resolved where we can open, but they have a lot of questions for us that we need to resolve. And one of those is the rail yard issues. But it's a great opportunity that we have to have this shutdown, because one of the things that it does is it's a greater inconvenience for the public not to have scattered weekend shutdowns and try to do bridges, et cetera, to serve those. So we're grateful for the opportunity WMATA's set forth, even though it wasn't created for us.
Okay. I have another question here. This one looks like it's going to be for Greg. Oh no, I apologize. This we'll see if this one can be answered today or not. Fairfax County buses that usually drop passengers off at Wheelie, will folks get off one bus and get on another, or will the Fairfax buses go to Ballston?
This is Scott with Loudoun County. Actually, I can address that because I've dealt with the WMATA folks very much on this. So the bus bridges are going to go from Wheelie to Tysons to Ballston. So you will still be able to get on a bus and get to the stations that you need to go. There will be no express buses at this time from Wheelie to Ballston. So everything will go Wheelie, Tysons, Ballston. That's what we're planning on our end, and that comes right out of WMATA's bus planning. So they've been very good about communicating that message with us.
Okay.
This is Greg, and I think what Scott was talking about was the Loudoun service. Not aware of any Fairfax service that goes specifically to Wheelie, actually, unless you know, Scott. There are
Fairfax buses that go to Wheelie from, I think, the Herndon area, and even from some places in the Reston, north of Reston area. But I don't believe that they've changed those routes to go anywhere else. They're just going to rely on the bus bridges, is my understanding. That's my understanding. I don't know that for a fact.
Will there be any additional routes connecting Fairfax and Loudoun County across 606 or in other areas in Sterling?
From our perspective, we have met with Fairfax on that a little bit. Obviously, with the rail being there, we don't really want to duplicate service. If rail's going between those two, then we would just as soon pick everybody up at 606 and kind of spread them out throughout the county where they need to go. Having said that, we have looked at and are contemplating routes between that probably Herndon and Sterling Park. That Sterling area, we've gotten some inquiries about going in between there. specifically from Herndon to the Sterling areas and back. So we are looking at possibly connecting, for example, our William Waters house over to the Herndon Monroe Park and Ride lot and having an area in there. We're still playing with that right now. And again, given the COVID-19, that's kind of would like to have, but it's being considered, yes.
What happens if the government starts requiring its workers to return to work? Will the alternative buses be able to handle any additional loading? I guess that's going to go to Greg.
Sure, I can speak to that. So we do get this question quite a bit. We've gotten it quite a bit from the business community, in particular, the Tyson's Partnership, Chamber, and others. So in speaking with our bus planners, they assure us that they can ramp up the service very, very quickly. I did mention earlier that, of course, right now, ridership is way down. It's down 95% in the corridor. To give you an example, the Wheelie station typically on a weekday gets 6,000, 7,000 entries, and we're hitting right now at Wheelie maybe 300 a day, somewhere around there. So as you can see, that's just really, really down. But of course, we have to be flexible, as the region reopens, working with the local jurisdiction, state, federal, and others. So they are able to ramp up service, and they can, as it does come back, they can be ready to go. And the Metro Board did get a very extensive briefing on the recovery plan for Metro, just generally. So that's out there, and it's kind of a phased approach, working with the CDC and other groups. And so we're going to be, really, really monitoring that. But the answer is yes, we can ramp up service very quickly if ridership starts coming back.
For Dennis, what is the status of the development of downtown Herndon since environmental remediation work began?
Well, the remediation has been completed. So the next step will be demolition of the building. I don't have an exact date when that's going to begin, but it should be shortly.
To Dennis and Scott, how much overlap and coordination on bus routes to the CIT area between Loudoun and Fairfax Connector? Is it online with the Connector website? And I think we might have touched on this, but it specifically referenced CIT, so I thought I'd ask that again.
Yes, I know Fairfax will have several stops or several bus lines going over to the Innovation Station. Even on the north side, there's I believe it's the 954, or I'm sorry, the 552, which will be going over to the CIT site.
Yeah, I don't know. We have met with Fairfax Connector on a couple different occasions. I don't know if they have posted our proposed routes on their map, but I'll follow up and see if they have. And if not, we'll see if we can't get some version of them on there to just allow people to comment on them for us.
Are there incentives in place that the contractors are losing due to their intransigence? Low-income individuals cannot afford the Metro who need to work across, low-income individuals cannot afford the Metro who need to work across 606 to Loudoun County Parkway. Please consider bus routes.
I would just say yes. We understand that. We understand the Title VI implications, and we're very conscious of the lower income populations, particularly between Sterling and Herndon in that area.
The one thing I wanted to share is just thank you to all of you. We had over 50 people on here at one point. This is the meat and potatoes. I mean, if you're trying to make business decisions coming back, Greg, the numbers at a Wheelie station and what happens, where they're at, those are all important business decisions, right? So what's the anticipation with COVID, post-COVID? How are you clean? What's going to happen? The confidence, the importance for affordable housing to access Metro line to get to work. These are all critical for how we work together. And what I like especially about the Dulles Regional Chamber is that we've got folks from both Loudoun and Fairfax. There's no passport. There's no refugees from one county to the other. We're all together. And, folks in Sterling and Herndon go back and forth and sharing pizza and drive-throughs all the time. So we've got to work like that. That's how the residents expect us to work together and help out.